Hello again, this is Chris Chirilla, the GIMovieCritic. It is Sunday, June 11th, and I've just returned from seeing the Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz film Night and Day, which turns out to be a romantic comedy with action. It seems like Hollywood was trying to give a movie that would appeal to both men and women to increase the appeal of it, with action for the guys, the romance for the girls, and overall it's a tricky balance to maintain, and they certainly gave a good effort, but in the end they did fall somewhat short. Now overall the first hour was pretty good, and the characters of Tom and Cameron were set up very well. A screenwriting guru by the name of Blake Snyder, he has a term which he calls "save the cat," and this is a moment usually within the first 5 minutes or so of meeting the protagonist that we get to know them, who they are, and we may not necessarily like them. I mean, for example, like the character of Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, but we get a sense of who they are, where they're coming from, so that way we can take the ride with them. And this Save the Cat moment is set up very well, I think. And Cameron, she has a rather unusual job. She restores old cars, classic cars, particularly cars made before 1970, and she has a dream of driving down south in one. Whereas Tom, aside from that charming smile, reveals a bit of world weariness. So I got on fairly quickly and settled back in to enjoy the ride. And the ride, for the most part, for the first hour, was pretty good. It was entertaining, and there were nice bits of comedy, obviously, to take the edge off the action. It's in the latter, after that, where the stakes need to be raised. I don't think they were raised as high as they could have been. The romantic stakes were certainly raised because Cameron is the protagonist, and therefore the romance should take front seat to the action. But the action stakes still were not raised to a higher level, so the tension kind of dropped off somewhat. Also, I thought that Cameron's character was, please don't take offenses, I thought she was a bit girly. She finds herself in several action sequences, none of her own choosing, and she pretty much just goes to pieces, and it's only because Tom is with her that she makes it through. Now, granted, in real life, a reaction like that might be totally justifiable, considering she has absolutely no sort of training or experience with this sort of thing, but I guess I just expected something more from a woman who restores classic cars. But then again, that is just my opinion. And the problem is also extended to the third act. The final confrontation. It's never really explained quite clearly who the bad guy is. There are several different people who want something that they think Tom has, and he does, but it's never quite clear who exactly is the one in the lead trying to get it. And in this third act, that both of the candidates for the main antagonist are actually killed off by means other than, a hand-to-hand combat or a shootout with Tom. Rather, it's other uninterested parties who somehow get involved and actually finish them off. And I thought that was a somewhat weak way to end the action. And speaking of endings, I also thought the ending, while good, I thought it stretched on a few minutes too long. I mean, at the beginning we see Cameron, alone, and really afraid to take that step out into life, and at the end she does. She's in charge, okay, she's ready to just, carpe diem, as they say from Dead Poets Society, and I thought it stretched on just a little too long. We got the gist of, she had made it, and then they added on a little extra, which was, in my opinion, rather unnecessary. One final note, Mr. Cruz, if you somehow stumble across this review, I thought you really didn't look good in that turtleneck, and I would suggest in the future you stay away from them. Overall, as I said in the beginning, this film, for the first hour or so, carries itself pretty well, but then loses steam towards the end. And with that in mind, I'll give this movie a solid B-. This is Chris Trilla, the GI Movie Critic. I'll see you at the movies.